Thank you once more for joining us for another edition of the FACEYOUth Mental Health Awareness and Stigma Reduction Seminar. Today, 20th of July, 2024. It's always a pleasure to have you all join us. Yeah, so we'll just go right in while we let people into the meeting, yeah? Like I said earlier, the program is recorded and will be uploaded to our FACEYOUth YouTube page and streamed on our social media pages, yeah? So my name is Ife. I already know many of you, but for those who don't know me, I'm the founder and the convener for the Foundation for Advancement of Child Education and Youth Empowerment. It's just a grassroots inspired charitable organization committed to improving the lives of disadvantaged children in Scotland and overseas through various initiatives. And one of the initiatives is mental health awareness and stigma reduction projects, which we've all gathered here for, right? So mental health is a crucial component of overall well-being. Yet stigma and lack of awareness continue to pose significant barriers to accessing care. FACEYOUth is dedicated to changing this narrative through our mental health awareness and stigma reduction project. This initiative aims to educate, empower, and support young people in our community, fostering a culture of understanding and acceptance. We are going to play a short video about FACEYOUth, and before we go into the event. But I would like to introduce our moderator for today, Alice Adams. I know she's not on the flyer, but I know next time she's going to be on the flyer. So she's doubling up as the moderator and also the panelist. And she will give us the opening statement after this short video. Yeah, can you play the video, please? The Foundation for Advancement of Child Education and Youth Empowerment, FACEYOUth, is a grassroots-inspired charitable organization with vested interest in alleviating poverty, promotion and support of quality education for the disadvantaged child, as well as promotion and provision of vocational and skills acquisition programs for the empowerment of youth. We believe that education and youth empowerment are potentially significant in contributing to the growth of every community. And it is this belief that inspired us to start a FACEYOUth to bridge the gap in educational opportunities between school children in rural communities and more developed communities by sponsoring as many underprivileged students as possible, by increasing youth representation and involvement in the decision-making process, by promoting and developing entrepreneurial spirit among youth, because we believe that entrepreneurship is one of the pathways to ending poverty, by disseminating relevant information about issues concerning youth written by youth. 3,500 families are beneficiaries of our Street Food Bank initiative, Mission Love. 250 children are beneficiaries of FACEYOUth Scholarship Scheme in Nigeria and Malawi, and over 500 children have benefited from the Back to School project between 2017 till date, where educational materials were distributed to 5 different schools in Nigeria. FACEYOUth have also renovated and established 2 library projects at public/government primary schools in eastern Nigeria. Over 80 young entrepreneurs have been given seed funding to support their business from 2018 till date. Entrepreneurship and mentorship seminars are being organized by FACEYOUth to empower young people, both physical in Enugu and virtual via Zoom. We believe that mental health needs unashamed conversation. Stigma and lack of understanding are two barriers that keep people, especially those from Africa and other ethnic minority communities, from seeking help regarding their mental health issues. It is in light of this that we launched the monthly Mental Health Awareness and Stigma Reduction Initiative for young people to tackle mental health issues in young people, especially from its onset. Our big project right now is the Eastern Food Bank, which was born out of a seasonal mission love initiative, because we believe hunger is not seasonal. And another big project is our radio school project to take quality education to remote places with radio network in Africa. Like every charity, our greatest need is financial. If you would like to support us, please, all we ask is for you to make a commitment of 1,000 naira monthly or $2 monthly. We understand that the economy is not stable at the moment. We all need a little extra support. But we believe that these little amounts can help us give children in rural communities quality education they deserve and also help alleviate poverty. We promise to keep you up to date on our activities and how we are spending whatever donations or grants we get. If you can spare anything at all, it will be greatly appreciated. If you also like to partner with us or know somebody that would like to collaborate or partner with us, please initiate the introduction. You can contact us via our email info@faceyouth.org or go to our website www.faceyouth.org/get-involved. Thank you. Thank you for listening. So without further ado, I would like to call on Alice Adam, who is our moderator for today, to take the floor. She would introduce herself because I like people to do it. I know that she doesn't like blowing her own trumpet, but I'd like her to introduce herself before you introduce the guest speaker, panelists for today. Thank you. It's kind of now. Okay, she can have to make co-host. Lisa, can you make co-host? Trying to mute herself. I thought I already did.
I currently live in Scotland. I'm a neuroscience researcher and a budding therapist. So mental health at the core of who I am is something I'm interested in. So I was born and raised in the UK, and education has been such a massive part of my life, more so from being first generation Nigerian. So my parents migrated to the UK at the age of 20 years old, and my mum was 21. And so my entire life literally has really been here. Become a part of the list of things to do and things to think about. And I'm very interested in hearing, especially today, from the panelists who have a wealth of experience concerning choices of education, especially in different communities around the world, how to really navigate that and what that would look like. So since I was little, we used to have the Times newspaper that would every year come out with the top 500 schools in the UK. And these schools were usually in London, in England, they'd usually be a mix of state schools and grammar schools. And the whole point of this was to kind of create some good, healthy competition between schools, but also to kind of gear up parents who are we're about to have children or have children, start thinking about what are the feeder schools? Feeder schools meaning the schools that kind of stem down from the Russell Group Russell Group universities. Then it goes on to A-level groups of schools, feeder schools into that. What schools help you get into the best universities? So that kind of, you see the top 20 schools would usually be the ones that are handpicked by Oxford and Cambridge and UCL, which are also under the name Russell Group schools. The Times newspaper was very important to my dad. He'd make me underline every year the top 20 schools in the hope that this is the aim now. This is where we're going to have to be. And most of them, like I said, were grammar schools meaning that they take the kids who have the highest IQs in the country. They take a test to get into the school. So I grew up, especially in the era of Tony Blair, which was education, education, education. So politically, we were now in an era whereby people of different classes were being urged to start thinking more about how to invest in education. And I didn't come from a home that had, we weren't millionaires. In spirit, we were millionaires, but actually bank account figures, we were not. And so the idea was, what can we now do to prepare and position ourselves to have the best education? And just like Face Youth is about quality education, meaning that not all education is actually equal. For other organizations, just like Face Youth, to be able to give a qualification for what education is in terms of quality, it means that not education is the same. That's really my background. I'm coming from that kind of home, coming from a quite urban area. I grew up in Tottenham, where the schools were not the greatest. My understanding of life was that you want to be in the best institutions in order to be in the best rooms and to be at the best tables. So I'm really excited about our topic today and the people who will be speaking, like I said, who I can't wait to hear and glean from their own experiences. And from my own, like I said, my background, I've been a part of both kind of schools, state schools, grammar schools, and independent schools. And I, for one, understand and see that there's a stark difference between all three of them. And I think the difference starts to become clearer when you get to university and you see the opportunities that were available to some of your classmates that you didn't see. And so the three things that I think I want to start off this conversation with are the three things that have been available for me to understand, which is one, something called the hidden curriculum. I talk about this all the time with my friends. If you know, I'm big on this topic called the hidden curriculum. This is a particular part of the curriculum, national curriculum, Scottish curriculum is called the curriculum of excellence, that you in a state school, they're not privy to. That means that the country has already created a 20-year plan of what the economy is going to look like in 20 years. So they create an understanding that, okay, if we want to get to this place in 20 years, we're going to have to prepare the children of now to take over and lead in 20 years, this particular plan. So they take that plan, create something called the hidden curriculum, and feed it to particular schools. What they do is they feed it to most, there's different types of independent schools. You have the non-selective independent schools. Those are schools that basically, if you have enough money, you can get into. Then you have the selective independent schools, meaning that they then take a test before you get in, and they want to take the creme de la creme of the society into that particular university, into that particular school. So much sometimes there are schools that only take children between, if they have their birthdays between September and November, meaning that they, in terms of their development, should be a bit further ahead than those in the school academic year that have their birthdays after December. That's how specific some schools can be when it comes to choosing particular students. So this hidden curriculum is given to these schools, and they're told, now go ahead and let these children know that you guys are going to become the creme de la creme of society. We're going to feed you guys with what the 20-year plan is for the economy. We're going to train you on particular things that we're not going to tell schools that follow the national curriculum or the curriculum of excellence. You guys are going to be the leaders. And you understand, if you're training people to become leaders, in other places, they're training people to become followers. So there's a clear, stark difference in the curriculum offered. Number two, the country are looking for parents who are willing to invest in their children, because to them, not so much the people who have money, but those who have that particular mindset that they want their children to be in the best places and the best institutions of the world are the kind of people they want leading their country. So there are children in those schools who may not be able to afford an independent school. And I know many of my friends, including myself, who are funded through independent schools just because our parents just had the idea that, you know what, we may not have the money, but I believe my child deserves to be in a school like this, and where can you help us? And we're the ones who have the opportunity to then have the entire our school funded. So they're looking for parents who are willing to invest, because that means they carry the mindset that they need for those who want to lead the country. And then the third thing that's really important to me is the Head Start. So there was a particular study conducted where they had children standing in a particular line, and then they said, you know, step forward if you have been opportune to certain sociological factors of life. One of them was private education. So they said, step forward if you come from a home with mother and father. Step forward if you have a home, if your parents are homeowners. Just different sociological and socioeconomic factors. And one of them that took a lot of the students a lot further and started them off was if you received private education to step forward. So the questions went all the way into if you've had jail time, if you've been a drug addict, or you had to go to rehab, if you haven't been able to afford something, if you own a car. So what they found was that actually the idea of private school may not be this hidden curriculum that I keep talking about. It may not be that, okay, we want the people who can invest in education, but actually it's just the idea that you actually have a head start. You give the child a head start in life. So although the people on the line, the counterparts of the same people who went to private school, went through the same life issues, they didn't end up in the same position. They were still ahead, only because they had a good head start. So the idea of independent schools being a good and quality education being a good head start for children. Can you have quality education outside of independent school? Yes, you can, but it will take a lot more effort from parents. Can you only have a quality education if you only go to independent schools? No, I think the idea of having parents involved, parental involvement is more important than anything. But the first form of parental involvement to me is being able to pick the kind of education that you're not going to find everywhere in the world, the kind of education that gives your child a head start, and the kind of education that sees past the curriculum of the school and sees the economy and the society as a whole. So that's my opinion. You might hear more of my opinion later, but I'm excited just to be able to hear from everyone else, especially the panelists today. We have Mrs. Eula Clark in the building, and I'm excited to hear about all that she's about. I know that they're going to put up on the screen her own profile that can be up there as I read. So you all could, just in case you can't hear me, but you can see. Yes, awesome. So can you guys see the screen now? Is that viewable to everybody? Thumbs up to someone, okay. So Eula Clark is the CEO of Clark Associates Consultancy, a UK consultancy business focusing on coaching and mentoring women to grow and achieve their goals, a renowned women in leadership expert, award-winning financial services professional, and detail-oriented trusted board advisor with over 2 decades of experience gained building teams, enhancing performance, and driving diversity and inclusion initiatives within highly regulated corporate environment. With over 45 years of experience achieved working at one of the largest financial institutions in the United Kingdom. Eula has won top bank branch manager awards and also recognized for her achievements by different awards, including 3 sets of platinum awards, a problem solver prominent for her management skills, team growth, and performance management strategies, including customer service and engagement. Eula, through Clark Associates business, runs women leadership workshops with focus on women leadership, supporting female executives to become excellent managers and experts in their chosen fields. A wife and a mother who uses her life experiences to coach and mentor women on how to have powerful relationships whilst developing their skills and building successful careers. Eula is a serial philanthropist who contributes her time and resources to supporting a variety of charitable organizations in the United Kingdom, Africa, and the Caribbean. She is a UN woman, United Kingdom, and a delegate, and she has been appointed as a country advisory council member for the higher education wing. Awesome. Eula has completed and published her first book, author of A Call to Elevate. That's amazing. Can't wait to hear from her, especially from the parental side of things. There's nothing like just having a parent as well as someone in the professional field. The other person who will be on our panelist is a personal favorite of my own, and he comes also from a wealth of experience. If you guys can put that on the screen as well. His name is Ayo Shote, and he's a best-selling leadership author and engineer, brings over 28 years of experience with strategic leadership roles within the oil and gas industry. His deep knowledge of energy management and decarbonization is complemented by his executive history in Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Nigeria. This, combined with his extensive expertise in business consultancy and executive coaching, underscores his commitment to driving operational excellence and steering business growth. He's an executive and also into leadership and business coaching, business organizational transformation, corporate governance and compliance, public speaking and authorship, strategy consulting in the energy business, global market development and operation. He too is a father, and it's, like I said, it's great to have parents on board here who have gone through these choices or are going through these choices. And then we'll be having a section, as we always do, with our meetings, where we'll have some just soft music, as music therapy is such a massive part of mental health. And we have today our singer-songwriter, Connie Miles, who's from England. And she has struggled with her mental health for a while, but she uses music as a way to help her get through this. She wants to inspire people and prove that they can be strong and also ask for help. She's currently in full-time education, studying science and criminology at college, amazing, as well as proudly working for the NHS as a receptionist. She has turned 18, wow, and she cannot wait for this next chapter in her life and advocate for young people who are struggling with their mental health. Her music is streaming on all platforms, with songs that start from age 16 and onwards. She and her dad work on the songs together. Oh, so cute. And this is a great way to stay busy in lockdown in 2020. So those are our panelists today. And I would like to invite Miss Eula Clark to take the floor first. So excited to hear from you. Again, I'd love for both our panelists, all our panelists, please touch on your own personal experiences, and we'll have questions at the end. So as soon as Mrs. Clark ends, we'll then invite Mr. Ayel.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. If I go back, you've already got the profile. And, you know, I'm from the corporate world of banking, assistant vice president for Barclays Bank, now taken early retirement 5 years ago. Been in the organization for 43 years, but it wasn't easy. But my thing was, I never blamed because I was Black. That's why the struggles were real. No, I made sure I found a mentor or a coach that will help me to get to the next level. So by the time I was ready to get my next promotion, I'm already prepared. That's how I do my business. So I've gone from being a cashier right through to the assistant vice president role, woman of the I'm not one of those branch managers that sits behind the desk and wait for business. I create the opportunity from within the community. Particular evidence of this was whilst I was in the Jewish community, which is in Golders Green. I'm based in London at the moment. Is I didn't understand how to serve them. So what do? I reached out to Lord Stacks, who's now deceased, and say, you know what, I've just moved into the area and I'd like to know how best to serve you guys. And I was introduced. Everything was just go see Eula, even from Israel. Long story short, I'm married. I've been married now September 45 years. I have one daughter. And I've just listened to what you said about education. Education is key for me throughout our thread of growing up. Both my parents were passionate about education, especially my father was always saying, if you haven't got it, documentation beats conversation. So you've got to have your certificate, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. They're both now deceased, but what we have now is legacy and memories to take us where we need to go. My daughter is now 37. She's a barrister, okay? And through the thread of growing up, she was particularly interested in writing her own story. When she was, 5? On the back of her door, she had her attraction of, when I'm this age, till she's 90, this is what I'm going to be doing. And so it's written, so it was done. Always wanted to do law. She went to a private school, like you were saying then, because I noticed that she was advanced for her age. But when she was born, my whole thought was, I cannot have her go to ordinary school, because I know she would be disruptive, because if she's not taken seriously, they will say, oh, she's been naughty in school, because her brain's not been challenged and she needs to be challenged. So I started saving up from the day she was born to get her into private school. We moved from Birmingham to London after being in Birmingham for 5 years. So I saved up. So she went into ordinary Montessori nursery. Then she went into ordinary junior school. And then she would then asked to attend the 11 plus, which she passed. And she was placed into an all-girls school. Did very well. She left that and went on, and we were in the Caribbean on holiday when she got her A-levels, all A's and just 1 B. Fluent in speaking and sort of writing Latin, which is needed when you're a lawyer. Fluent in French and a bit of Spanish, but she didn't like Spanish because it was too deep in your throat when you're doing your pronunciation. She ended up going to Durham University, and then on to Nottingham, the big Nottingham University, to do English. She's a scholar in English. And then she went on to do American study. She then went over to California to do her master's in law, trial advocacy, and then was interning in the courthouse in LA. She's back in the UK now, still litigating, doing her law. But the funny thing about it, when Labour came into office a couple of weeks back, she actually made an appointment to go and see Keir Starmer when he was part of the CPS. And she had a face-on interview because he was just feeling out what kind of law she'd like to do. And I thought, oh my God, look at that, yeah. But she's doing very well. I'm proud of her. Job's done. And I'm reaping the benefit now because I get taken away on holiday. I get treated. She's out shopping now. What do you want? I said, you buy me what you're buying yourself. So that's kind of my story in a small nutshell, because I've got to shoot before 4 o'clock. And in my consultancy, I work with women, I work with charities, I give of myself. And if I get an extra change, I give. I've had a conversation with the lady who wants some money for some pads. So I've sent some money over to her for school children, £7 a year, keep these children in their classes. I also raised funds and supported they weren't charity at the time, they were just a limited by guarantee. Their organization of women. I was a business coach and strategic planner. They wanted to become CIC. That's a company registered where you can go for funding. They paid the money to get it done, didn't get it done. They got declined. So I said, let me have a look. I don't know how to do it, but I found out how. I managed to get them CIC Reg, where they can now apply for funding. That happened in January. So I've decided now, January, my book was published. This is my little book, yeah. And book was published. So I said, I want to now focus on myself and kind of grow my own ability to do my own consultancy. And so I kind of step away from them. But I'm now helping other ladies who are running residential care and also having their own business in dom care. So I do leadership and performance management with them, and how to conduct proper supervision, not just a tick box, yeah. So I take that through with them. And I also have a monthly Zoom that we help in preparation for anything that they want to know or do. Then we have an awards ceremony that we do for them every year. And we had the last one was at the House of Lords with over 50 ladies. I forgot to say, precious to my heart is Richard Taylor. I don't know how many of you know of him, who died in March. I'm an ambassador for Damilola Taylor Trust, and I've been raising funds for them since 2005. Richard wanted me to be a board of trustees, so I've completed my application. I'm just waiting on that now. But I still do what I need to do with the trust, you know. And so that's me in a box right there. So any questions for me, ladies or gents?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Just a little bit of me.
No, the fact that that's even a little bit, I mean, it's a lot. And it just goes on, like you said. I love what you said about not being limited by some of the things that I think we can limit ourselves within the community, and being able to rise to the top. And also, I love what you mentioned about knowing the importance of education and what that's done and how that's helped your daughter.
Oh God.
I loved how you mentioned, you know, all that she was able to do at the time of her A-levels, being able to speak different languages.
Yeah, Michelle, that's my baby.
Oh, wow, beautiful. So, I mean, I'd love to hear more about, you know, how you navigated as well, making these school choices, because I'm from London too. And when you start getting into grammar schools or independent schools, there are times where the choices for parents are more like, wait, I was the only Black person in all my classes, you know, and so I wonder, how, as a parent, how do you navigate making those choices in education for your child, you know, during that particular time?
I think because I sent her to Montessori school, which is a nursery, she started to read when she was 3. So I know I need to plan something different for her, because she was writing her stories. And when I sent her to the junior school, the teacher, when she went in, the teacher said to me, by the time she gets to 5, she's going to be reading. She's going to be bored and start reading. And I thought, she's only junior school, first reception. And I thought, I need to plan now. Luckily for us, there was an all-girls school not too far. But the all-girls school, would you believe, linking to Princess Catherine School, Marlborough. That's the other partnership to it. So the all-girls school wasn't far from me. It was about, what, 10 minutes walk? So that was what kind of the lean when you went to look at the school, the feel for the interview the headmistress did, because we had to all be interviewed, myself and my husband. Then my daughter got interviewed after.
Yeah.
You have to prepare the child, and in preparing her, I used to get her to read the papers, yeah, like the Guardian son. And would you believe it was the day of Jamie Bolsher, of that killing? I remember it to this day. We were interviewed. She can play the piano, she can play the violin. So when we were interviewed and we were asked, did she play the instrument? She was in the choir. And I said, yeah. I knew then that she already got accepted the way it was asked. Then when she was being interviewed separately from us, and the headmistress who was interviewing touched base on the Jamie Bolger case, she articulated herself. Preparation is key. Yeah. She was able to tell the story. She read it the night before. She's got a photographic memory like her mother.
So you felt that you had prepared her, you know, as a parent as well for, you know, being able to be in some of the best institutions.
Yeah.
So you're not surprised about how she is doing now. You expect that the education that she received was able to, you know, get her into some of the best institutions in the world.
Flip the narrative now. If I say anything negative, I get, hold on a minute, you're on a negative path there, mum. Come on now, go back. You always speak positive over yourself. Jesus, I created you, and look, you're like a mini me now. Yeah.
Yes. And so did you feel any form of apprehension around, you know, obviously you helped her with the choice of primary school and obviously at secondary school, but how do you think that kind of affected you and your husband in terms of those choices? Did you ever feel that you were feel pressured to kind of go to schools that might, you know, you'd have to pay? Did you ever feel the weight of society where it comes to deciding what choice of schools you'd be choosing for your child?
No, I wanted an all-girls school because I didn't want the distraction.
Yeah.
And I didn't choose it without conversation with her. There's 3 of us in the family, so we all have a conversation. She at the end would have to say to me, yeah, or she has a voice, you see what I mean? So it wasn't a dictator to say, well, I needed to go there. I knew academically she was ahead of her age, right? So I wouldn't be doing her justice if I didn't stretch to make it happen. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Would she have been a lawyer if she was in ordinary? I think there'd be distraction. So I had to follow what I'm seeing in front of me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You don't have to tell her to do homework when she was young. She'd come and pick, it's all done. Yeah. You know, all done. I didn't have to, when I'm coming in from work, or she gets picked up by the childminder while I'm at work, and then she has her homework to do when she gets in. No, all done.
Mm.
You know, I'm decluttering my loft. You know, I'm in reading books. Perhaps it's an only child thing. I don't know. Yeah, could be.
And I was going to ask you as well,
Mm.
can you share some of the stresses, though, that you did experience during the school selection processes for primary and secondary? And how did you manage these stresses, you know, especially where it comes to you and your husband being on the same page as it pertains to what school she should go to? Could you also talk about how that could have, any other stresses that you experienced?
I think there was like, you have like a guideline of independent school. You have like a book. I wanted a selection to be near home, because if we're not able to pick her up, or there is problem with the friends who should go to their place with, because there's like a group of 5 girls, that they, if the parents are picking up, they pick up and, you know, take her. So I wanted to make sure that as she gets older, she's able to walk, or they'll all walk together. And it's just that was key for me because of what's happening around, you know, with young girls.
Yeah.
So she has a close friend of hers, the dad used to pick up, and then she'd go there, and then en route I'd just collect her from, either one of us would collect her from the house. Yeah. So that wasn't a problem. The stress for me would probably be around the affordability, because it's not cheap. You got to find all the crochet stuff for games. You got to find all the instrument for violin. So what I did, I didn't borrow. We made sure that we started to save enough, because they paid like the term time. So we know at that time it was like £5,000 for the year, and then how much it is now. Yeah, £5,000 plus. Yeah, you see, I'm going back to, what is it now? I'm going back to what, 19. It's about 2000, 2000, yeah, about 1985 she was born, so I'm going back a little bit. Yeah, but I also paid for Montessori.
Yes.
If we were wasting money on nursery and childminder, which wasn't going to stimulate, I paid the fee for her to get into Montessori. So they started to train the mind then.
Yep.
Play. You know how powerful Montessori is?
Yes.
That's why she started to read at 3. Yeah. The little cat. Bless.
So how are you informed about what, because you understood the benefits of Montessori, you know, and not everybody would understand Montessori.
Research.
Yeah, research.
Research. I had to Google research, my friend. I had to ask the question. I had to decide, is it childminder, nursery, or where can she go? Because I need to make sure. My parents was always about focus, education. My dad was always on her case as well, you know. Go. And then when she got called to the bar with her wigs, my dad, just before he passed away, she got called to the bar in July. And my dad was like, oh my God, I know you do it. I'm so proud of you, you know, because little picture with their little wigs. Yeah, that made it. That's the icing on the cake right there. And it didn't matter whether she was the only black. There was a couple of blacks in the private school, not a problem. That doesn't faze her, because you know what? The message for me is we need to break those barriers and don't be condemned by, oh, I'm the only black. You have a force for good. And the same thing happened to me when I went into the bank. I said, I'm just as good as the white person, but I was always thrown into the branches that were struggling. So I'm being set up to fail. But the biggest thing for me was I audit before I step into the chair. I said, oh, let me take stock of what I've got to deal with here. And I'll go back to the director. These are the issues. I need more staff to put it right before it's under my name. Yeah. Put it right. Yeah. Pick up a branch that was sort of 50th in the area, and I moved it to number 2. Yeah.
Wow.
So I went up and I picked up my top branch manager, and I said, okay, guys, to the team, let me get my top branch manager. You go and pick up the rest. Top personal banker, top for compliance, when compliance is to the floor, written off. Yeah. I just watch him pick up. I go, you go. I'm not going to take the accolade, I take my own. Hence the awards. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Amazing. And I guess one of my last questions I wanted to ask you is, what factors were most important to you when choosing a school for your child? And how did you balance these considerations with social and emotional needs? I mean, you spoke about how for you is more like how close it is, very practical.
Yeah, close. Yeah.
Yes. And so
I
what
think
other things, you find important?
I wanted to make sure that the headmistress was very touchy-feely. You know, she had the children's care and nurturing at heart, which she did. Yeah. She was very touchy. You wanted to see her, the doors are always open. You get feedback, you'd get regular report. They'll call in if there is an issue, no concern. And also the behaviors of the rest of the girls, smart, dress, those were, you know, they're very sort of polite. Mrs. You know what I mean? Those sort of nurturing and mini mature, like they're like debutantes.
Yes, totally understand.
When you hear them speak, oh, it's like, her name is Louise, right? So let me tell you this. When I was living in Birmingham, the next door neighbor, granddaughter, was Louise, Sarah Louise. And I said, I like that name. I wasn't pregnant then. I never got pregnant till I got here. And I go, okay, I like that name. But I'm not going to do Sarah. I called it Louise, right? So when I moved here in 85 and I got pregnant in December, I said, okay, she's black, her name is Louise. What do you think when you hear the name Louise? Come on, girl. We have to play psychology. These are all strategy. You hear Louise. She comes on the phone. She's like a flipping white person with a plum in her flipping mouth. Yeah. Oh, we need to do standards here. Yeah.
Yes.
Play the game. Why do you play the game? You're just as good as.
And how did you, when you say play the game, how do you as a parent start to understand how to play the game?
From during work, right? The same game, the same promotion that elude you. How'd you get it? Oh, you're not ready yet. We'll probably wait till next year. Well, why should I have to wait? If I need that promotion, I say, okay, that's my next level. Let me go around to the person who's in that promotion and get some coaching and understanding of the role. When I'm ready to fill out my application, I'm already there because I've already been mentored. You can't tell me next year. Yeah. Okay. I do the things that are needed to be done outside of my desk. The customer then come walking into your branch. You have to create the rapport with all the different communities. Jewish community, Asian community. I'm in Kingsbury. I'm with the Kingsbury Asian. I get samosas free when I'm doing meetings. Yeah. I get onion bhajis. I don't eat them, but the team need them. I'm there doing stuff with the Neeson Temple. I'm teaching the parents with my team how to prepare for private education because they don't know. Instead of borrowing from a mortgage and getting in debt, preparation is key. Yeah. That's what it is.
Preparation. Wow. I mean, I've learned so much. Like I said, I have children under 5. I'm about to start the choice making, but I think
get them into a nice junior school first. Don't stress. You can get them into Montessori, but you have to look. My sister's the same. I have 2 nieces. She put them into a PEP school, young age, right? The thing I said to her, you shouldn't have done that, but they don't listen, do they? Right. So she put them into PEP. She's ready now to go into private. She got them into private. That's fine. But that's where the stretch come in, because that first 7 years and then the 11 plus, the where it matters now is the 11 plus, because that's when the A level GCSE comes in. And when my daughter did her GCSE, she kicked the bugger at the park. She got, I think it was 11 GCSEs and 4 AS and then 3 A levels, all good grades, including Latin. Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then off to America on her own, like my mom. My mom came here from Jamaica on her own. Yeah. First, and then my dad. And then she went off to America for what, 3 years to do her master's. Well, Mom, I need to go to America. I said, so where are we getting the freaking money from then? So, but we got it. And she did her master's there. I think master's was a year, and then she interned for a bit. She still got a place there. She has. We decided to. She was sharing her house with some of the girls, and we decided the lady wanted to sell the property. So I'm in Googling, and I found a sort of a, what's it now? a gated community for her with a studio flat. But I also with friends with a couple of a family over there that would make sure she was okay, help her with her shopping and so on. So when the time is right, the right people show themselves. You just got to sense check yourself. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, no, we've learned. I mean, I've learned so much, and I'm sure that there are people who have questions. I just implore you to, if you do have questions, for Mrs. Clark, please type them in so that we can send them to her. She's gonna have to go.
Yeah, I can answer them. Yeah.
But before that, I just wanted to start again, introduce Mr. Ayosote as well. As one of the panelists, because you've spoken so much, Ms. Clark, on your own personal experiences and just that having a mental mind shift of what your purpose is. What are you doing here? How do you get from here to the top? How do you educate your children? How do you start to educate others on how to prepare to be the best? And you know, especially just living in inner city London and navigating those choices of schools. I mean, now your daughter's older, you've done so well, by the way. And it's great to just see that there is.
I've done so bloody well, I can't get her out of the house now.
And so I'm happy to also excited, should I say, to introduce a personal favorite of mine, Mr. Ayosote, who also, just like Ms. Clark, has older children who've been through the school system, and he himself also has climbed the corporate ladder and would love to speak to us. Mr. Ayosote, are you there as well? Can we hear you? So make sure
yes.
Great.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you so much. Good luck, everyone. Hope it was helpful. All right, bye-bye.
And so, yeah, please tell us of your own experiences and the importance of education for you, and where it comes to choices as well for your children. We'd love to hear your own personal stories.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll not be able to put on my video. I'm currently in Lagos, and network is not so interesting. So managing bandwidth. So I grew up in Nigeria, and so my experience would basically be a combination of both the Nigerian educational system and an international flavor. And I say international because working for Baker Hughes, I went international with Baker Hughes. So that means my children practically had to go through the international educational system, which is slightly different from the UK system. So growing up in Nigeria, of course, you also tend to see that marked difference between independent schools or private schools and public schools. Now, public schools are nothing to write home about. So even when I was growing up, my parents basically, made the investment of sending me to private schools, which really, really helped, impacted me and my siblings, and helped prepared us for life. Now, that then fitted into my decision concerning my children. So my desire to soak myself in my job, become a high potential employee so I could go international, was primarily driven by that desire to get the best of education for my children. Because I remember when my son, who is 25 now, 26 next month, was just about 2, I just put him, I think 2 or 3, I just put him into a nursery school then, which was Montessori, by the way, and I looked at the cost. And the question in my head is, by the time he gets to university, or by the time he gets even to secondary school, which is what we call in Nigeria, how am I going to afford it? I then realized that I needed help. Now, of course, you can save, but in a place like Nigeria, where the economy sometimes is topsy-turvy, you've got to look for another way to plan for it. So my own route out of that was, okay, I was going to focus on becoming the best I could be in my career and get the company to see the benefit in me getting into leadership. And that way they will train me further and send me international, which was what panned out. So my children practically went through the international school system, both in Aberdeen and of course in Oman. And then by 2013, when we came to Aberdeen, they continued there. Now, 2016, I left Baker Hughes unplanned, and we needed to take a very tough decision on what we're going to do with the children. One, they were in an international system that was focused on the IB curriculum. Living in Scotland, it was either we pulled them out and then put them into the Scottish system, which at that time was not the best for my son, especially because he was also dealing with a condition called dysgraphia. So we made a decision to, keep them in international school, We knew it was expensive. We knew we needed to then think differently from a financial perspective. And that was the decision we made. Now, why did we make that decision? We made that decision because we knew that their experience in the international school system was far better than what my wife and I went through when we were growing up. Ability to learn a musical instrument, ability to develop strategic thinking skills very early on. They were basically taught to be independent-minded, challenge perceptions, which we saw at home. So it was perfect. Now, why was that perfect? When you look at the government school system, whether in Nigeria or in the UK, I think that the children that their parents cannot afford private or independent education are already at a disadvantage. And they're already at a disadvantage because the school system, the investment in the government school system is not enough to prepare this children for society. And that's why you see that stratification in society where, Alice, just like you explained, there are specific group of children, because either their parents can afford it or they're in positions of power, are prepared to be leaders from almost day one. And then the remaining are just basically the runt of the pack, right? And when they come out, they're struggling to make ends meet. I struggle with that. Now, and of course, as for every parent, you've got to think about your children first. How do you prepare them for the best position in society? And that is to possibly, whichever way you can, get them the best quality education, which in my case was, I became the best I could in Baker Hughes, which was the company I was working for. Now, one of the things I saw when I was working was everybody that grew up in the US is a lot shorter. So maybe I got there when I was in my early 50s. Some of these guys got there when they were in their late 30s or early 40s. Why? Because they grew up in a country where education was better managed, or maybe they even have the opportunity to go to private schools, which at the secondary school level in Nigeria, I could not. I had to go to a government school. So by the time I was getting into that organization, I was already at a disadvantage. And that is where I have a challenge that we must, as a society, look for a way to ensure that government puts more investment in education. Education is a basic need. And everybody, whether everybody goes to an independent school or a government school, the quality of education should be the same. The opportunities for children when they come out, based on the quality of education they've received, should be the same. And that's my story, practically, basically. And I don't know if you have any further questions for me.
No, I mean, you made such great points there, especially where it comes to what I'd mentioned, which is about having a head start, and seeing the differences, especially where it comes to education, and even the idea of government investing in education so that everyone gets quality education. Whether it would be the same would be something debatable, but I love the idea of what you mentioned about having quality education. And so, I mean, from what you mentioned, I wonder, what about for you, or especially when it came to picking schools? I know you have 3 children, and you know, who have different abilities and at different stages of life, and you're having to pick and look at each child individually and wonder what's best for them, as you mentioned. What factors for you were the most important when choosing a school for your child? What are the kind of things that you think, as especially from a, how you've climbed that ladder in life, how you think as parents we should be thinking, or as people in working should be thinking about how to balance that, the academic considerations with social and emotional needs as well?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So the first thing I would like to point out is, despite the fact that I live in the UK, I'm still uniquely connected to Nigeria. And one of the things I've seen, and I will use Nigeria as a case study, is the fact that a lot of parents tend to invest in sending their children to very expensive private schools. with a proviso, expecting that the schools will be responsible for developing these children. I think that is a fallacy and it is wrong. So to then use that to answer your question, all my children went to the same school. They went to the same international schools. But you've got to recognize they're each uniquely different. And as a parent, and that's where your job as a parent is extremely important. You've got to understand your children. You've got to recognize differences. You've got to also understand their mental resilience. Because they grew up in the same house does not mean that they deal with issues the same way. And as parents, we tend to lump them all into the same bucket. I've made that mistake several times. My wife has made that mistake several times. But in recent times, we're waking up to the fact that they're all different. So even if they go to the same school, you must be willing and ready to recognize one, your investment in their mental health will be different. And you need to recognize that pretty early. And you've got to start to invest in that, right? I tell you about my son. My son had dysgraphia. We discovered it when he was 9. And the way I related with him was different from the way I related with his sisters. My younger daughter is on the spectrum, not so severe, but I made a mistake with her because I didn't recognize it early. Now, because she's the youngest, because she grew up in a home where she sees herself constantly as a runt of the pack, everybody wants to tell her what to do. Our reaction to that was to be a little bit more assertive. And we misunderstood that assertiveness for the issues that she had. So we didn't jump on that as early as with my son. Now, the other reason for that is that my daughter, my first daughter, which is the middle one, pretty independent, knows what she wants, and she was able to go after it. And that blinded us to what my younger daughter was going through. Right now, I explained that because I want you to see that as parents, all your children are different, and you must make that investment. That's emotional and psychological investment to understand each one of them and be able to relate with them based on their unique differences. It's an investment because to do it is not easy, because you as a parent, you also have your own needs, right? But as a parent, that's the best way you can help them, because when they get to school, it is the quality of life they have at home that actually helps them to relate better in school and do well in school. And that is why you see the disadvantage in society. Because when you start thinking of children in society that don't have that I don't have parents that are that perceptive, or they don't have a safe family environment for their parents to understand that, they're already at a disadvantage in school. So even when government, which I still think the government should look at, put that investment in school, then you need a bit of extra support for them. So from my perspective, school choice was easy. International school, if I move to a country, we go for the best international school, which will allow them to be able to fit into the next one when we move to another place. But that investment at home, and that was why my wife and I made a decision. One person works, one person stays at home, just to ensure that the children get the support and the focus that they need. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was packed. I know that there's going to be questions coming just from that. That was loaded. I feel like I made notes for my own life. By the way, Ms. Ayashate is a coach, so if you're looking for a coach, he's perfect. But I think you said something that I think is interesting, and I know it's got a lot of people triggered. And this is the topic of, you put your child into an international school or an independent school, and you're hoping that they're going to do everything. But what you've come and said to us now is that no, it's actually, there's still an investment, not just financially in terms of the education, but also the emotional and social investment that you have to also give the child, each individual, because you have 3 separate children, separate ages, separate needs completely, which how you manage that, I'm still trying to understand. So, and then you mentioned that there's an investment that needs to happen at home. And so you now mentioned as well the idea that, okay, for your family, you realize that to make this investment that we're putting into the international school worthwhile, it would need to be that we invest in the home, and that looks like one parent working. Now, How do you manage such a decision and then also navigate the decision to also financially invest in school?
Okay. So for my family, I think the advantage we had was when my wife and I were dating, we discussed about our children. We met in Nigeria. We grew up in Nigeria. We understood the different backgrounds we were coming from, and we also understood the impact that background had on our lives. And we recognized that if we were not lucky, we would have gone in totally different directions, and maybe our life would have been messed up. And I think we were able to see pretty early that goes back to the quality of life at home. So we discussed it. We knew financially it was going to be tough, especially in society that we have today, where both parents really need to work to make ends meet, right, for the family too. So what we then decided was, okay, fine. I was working in the oil and gas industry, so if I focus on becoming the best I could and keep growing, well, most likely we have the resources we need to ensure that the family is kept at a level of comfort that will enable us to do that. But we knew that being able to put savings aside for the future was most likely going to be difficult. And we needed to think of a way to work around that, right? So even when we decided one person works, my wife was always focused on the business side. She was always doing business. When we're still in Nigeria, she would go to Dubai once every 3 months, stay for about 5 days, and come back. And I will ensure that, okay, I'm at home at that time, so that the children can still get that support they needed. When we moved, she couldn't do the Dubai thing again. Started thinking of other things. She went into catering, which she's always loved, and started learning to become a decorator and so on. And then now she's a nurse, because the moment we got to a point where we know that, okay, I think our last daughter was 15 then, she registered to be a nurse, went through the training, and today she's a nurse. But the financial impact we still feel, I can tell you that, right? And we're still trying to get out of that. But what was important was this, to realize you could have all the money in the world. If your children don't turn out right, all the money in the world is useless. Today, I have 2 graduates, right? My son is a graduate, is working in Dundee. My first daughter just graduated. She's also working, and she's also working on a business at the same time. And then the last one is the one that's about to go to uni, right? So you've got to, if you have all the money in the world and you can afford for one parent to work and it will not impact your financials in the future, it's a fantastic decision to make. If you do not have that luxury, you've then got to decide which is more important, right? And that was what we did. Now, with a proviso, and I told all my children, I said, listen, what I'm giving you is an investment. The education you're getting today, in fact, that was a day I remember, this was in 2010, I think. I sat down with my kids. We were in the UK then. I was already walking out of the Middle East, and they were about to come and join me. And I told them what their school fees was. I told them what the company was paying for the school fees. And I converted it to Naira. And I told them, if you were in Nigeria and I was still in this same role, getting the same salary, I might be able to, afford putting you in a private school in Nigeria. I said, but the quality of education you're getting today will be better than what you're going to get in Nigeria. And I told him, I said, you've got to see this as an investment. We are investing in your future. Right. I think my son was about, how old was he then? Maybe about 10. So it was a tough conversation to have with children at that age. But they needed to see that. They needed to understand that their parents were sacrificing, and they need to also come to the table ready to put their best foot forward. But the other thing I told them was this, right? There will not be any black tax on you. And I don't know if you understand the concept of black tax, in the sense that when you are out of your educational system and you're working for yourself, I will continue to make sure I can take care of myself and your mom. So the focus is become the best you can be, go out there into the world and make an impact. Without thinking that, I've got to make an impact so I can take care of mom and dad. If you bring it because you want to bless our lives, fine, I'll bless you back, right? But that is not the reason the reason we're making this investment is not so that you can take care of me in future. Because I've had parents say that, especially in Africa, and it annoys me. Because what we're doing is we're inadvertently putting these children under pressure. Become the best you can be for your own good. That's my job to provide for you. And that's how we went through that particular decision process. Now, has it been good? I believe so, because I think the children have turned out right. Do we need to recover financially? Obviously, we need to recover financially. And we're on that road. We are recovering already, and we will get there based on our own plans. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. I can see there are people clapping, there are people who are agreeing. There's comments here. Thank you for this point. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like you touched on so many different points, especially where it comes to making your children understand the investment that's being made by yourself and your wife, not just from the financial point, like we're paying for school, but like you said, there's also that investment that because of this, mom is at home with you, you know? So just having the children realize how important you find their education to be, that sacrifices we are making to make you be the best you can be. And I love the point where you mentioned, as well, by the way, if anyone has questions and you don't want to ask right now, you want to ask live, you can put your hand up. But I think that was such a great point to make, that we're working, you're encouraging your children to work to be the best version of themselves for them. So I mean, you're a strategist by nature, you know, so you get into the arena of decision making and choices of schools for your children from a place of strategy. So you have that advantage. What about for the parents, especially where it comes to people who've migrated to the UK? So you understand both, you know, people who've migrated for work, people who've migrated for better opportunities. How do you, like I said, it comes naturally to you. For those who it doesn't come naturally for, as they enter or they migrate from Nigeria to, or Africa or other places to the UK, what are the things that they should be thinking about, that you would say, these are the things you should have on your mind as you decide on what type of education your children should have, as you decide on how to manage your finances as it pertains to education? What would be those key things that you'd want to tell us to remember?
Okay, well, it's going to take a book to answer that question, though, but I'll give it a try. I'll take a stab at it. The first thing they've got to realize is it's a totally different culture. It's a totally different environment. They should expect that the children will feel it and the children will need help. That's important, right?
Yes.
They also need to recognize that they also are going to be under pressure. Yes, it was a conscious decision for them to relocate. But every time you go through change, it comes with this pressure. So they've got to recognize that. Now, what that means is what has worked at home for wherever they're coming from might not work in the UK. So they must be willing to plug into a community that can help and advise. That's number one. Number two, there is no point trying to belong, if I can use that word, right? The UK has free education up to a level. Take advantage of it. Now, one of the things that most of us don't know when we're migrating is where you get to live has an impact on the kind of school your children can go to. But of course, where you get to live is also dependent on what you can afford, right? So if you can do a research ahead of time to know, this is the time I'm going to in the UK, what kind of schools are available there? What is the quality of the schools? And how does that impact, you know, where I get to stay, and can I afford it? At least, even if they cannot afford it, that process of learning that helps them to understand, okay, these are the disadvantages I'm most likely come across in the choice of schools. Then the next question is, how do I mitigate against it? Now, connecting into an existing community, right, helps for them to learn how to mitigate that. But one thing that is very important is this, and I think Mrs. Clark mentioned that. The way your children see themselves in this new environment is also important. And you as a parent, you are the one that will be the best person to teach the children how to deal with it. Guess what? The average human being does not like change. And because of that, when they come across someone they do not understand, that looks different, they will be antagonistic. It's a natural human behavior. A lot of us learn to put it under control, or the society forces us to put it under control, but you see, that's why racism, it's difficult for racism to die in any society. So the children must recognize, because I'm from a different place, because I speak differently, people are going to most likely treat me differently. How do I respond to that? And it's not by moaning or complaining, it's by recognizing I'm different, but I'll be the best I can be, and I will show these people that they need to accept me the way I am. That is more positive than moaning about it. And everybody, parents and the children, must recognize that. Now, the moment the children then start getting to school, you also need to recognize, at least in the first 1 year, they're going to be dealing with things that are different. Now, let me use a story to illustrate that particular statement. My son, we got into the UK in 2008, and we started getting complaints about my son. First and foremost, academics, because he had dysgraphia. He needed to have extra classes in school. We walked in and so on. And then, of course, we got complaints about it was destructive. So the first thing we did was, based on the school's advice, get him checked. And that was when we discovered that he had dysgraphia. We didn't know before then. And then, of course, we started having conversations around, don't be a bully, but stand up for yourself. Now, that can be challenging to explain to a child. Right? Stand up for yourself. Somebody harasses you. Don't cry for the person. Be strong, but look for a way to explain to the person you don't like the way the person has behaved. When you see others that are weaker than yourself, do not bully them. You've got to recognize everybody's different. And it's a constant conversation. You must have that conversation. Your children are human beings. They're your children, yes, but they're human beings. If you see them as human beings, you will have the proper conversations with them as if you're talking to somebody at your age. And children appreciate that. Right? And I discovered that with my children, they appreciate that, because then they can then learn to tell you the way they feel. Then a few years later, which was about 6 or 7 years after we had gone to the Middle East, we were back, I was in a vehicle with my son, and my son said, you know what? My third grade teacher was obviously right to be upset with me. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, because, we just came from Nigeria. The school I went to in Nigeria, we were very hard physically with ourselves. I was talking about the kids. And I brought that into the classroom thinking it was the same environment. And of course, the teacher was upset because I was very disruptive, I was very pushy. And now I understand that she needed to do that. Now, that was an eye-opener for me. Because if I had gone deeper into that conversation, don't bully anyone, and said even the physical, your physical nature in your school in Nigeria, where everybody's rambunctious and you get into each other's face, you push each other around, you kick each other, does not operate here. Maybe part of that feedback that we got wouldn't have gotten. And that's very important, because children will always come from the issue times, which is where they're coming from. And if you don't help them understand that it's a new society and they've got to understand the way the society operates, right? If they get pushed back, guess what? They withdraw into the shell, and that then affects, the way they operate in school. So that's important. That's what we went through, and that would be my advice to any family that's just relocated or about to relocate.
Oh, that's packed. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Aishote, just for strategy. I think it's so important as parents, especially looking at the emotional and social aspects of school choices and education and parenting, just to be able to come from that angle of strategy is very good. Thank you so much for your time. It's now time for us to open up the floor. Mr. Aishote is still around. We also have our always ever special guest, Dr. Chidi, and we'd love to hear contributions from you as it pertains to this particular topic. So if there's anyone who would like to make contributions or have any questions, please put the questions in the chat as we continue to hear from Dr. Chidi. And if you'd like to raise your hands as well, to make any contribution as well. I see a hand up from right now, so I'll go ahead and
Yeah,
ask you to
thank you
unmute.
so much, Alice and Dr. Pastor Ayo, as I always call him. Like, I can't contain myself. It's been like very enlightening conversations that we've had. I think I have a question or contribution. I'd like Dr. Ayo to come in as well, because one thing that I have seen, and it's impacting on many families at the moment, is the need to take the children to Africa, particularly Nigeria, because it's popular among Nigerians now to take the need to take their children to Nigeria for education. Want to learn the culture and the language and experience, like make friends the way we grew up, right? And it's becoming very popular. And children are being left with family members who are, I don't want to use the word incapable, but are not very competent enough to take care of the children. And considering the cultural shock, like the children coming from the UK and they are not given adequate conducive environment to settle, right? And it's impacting a lot on their mental health. Some of them don't get to speak to their parents about it because of fear, and then some do. I like Dr. Ayo to also touch on that. Yeah, because I mentioned that many of them, one of the reasons they also send the children to Nigeria is vaping is becoming very popular, and also the LGBTQ issue in the UK as well. So I'd like Dr. Ayo to touch on that.
All right. Thank you very much for that question. I personally don't agree with that practice. And the reason I don't agree with that practice is that LGBTQ is all over the place. It's not only in the Western world. I was a victim of that in boarding house in Nigeria. Right? And thank God I had the presence of mind to basically, push back, and the person did not disturb me anymore. But if I did not have the sense of mind to push back, I would have been sucked into that tornado, right? So sending children to Nigeria, I don't. We have a lot of it. Some people say, "Oh yeah," so that by the time they grow up and they start working, their mates will be in positions of authority and government, and when they come back, they can connect. Listen, you can connect anywhere you get to if you have the basic skills of building relationships and building networks. The best place and the age where we tend to send children to Africa is the most critical age for children, between the ages of 11 and 20. The teens are the most dangerous life of a child. The child's body is changing, emotions are raging. They're moving into this place where they're so unsure of themselves, where they can easily be influenced by anybody that they see has a bad boy, bad girl image. And we're sending them to a place where there are no parents. That's number one. Number two, nobody can care for your child as much as you can. So by the time they come back, because the teenage years also are the best place to become their friends. You remain their parents, but they must also see you as a friend. And if you're not there because you send them to Africa, by the time they come back, they are strangers. You cannot connect with them anymore. So I don't personally, and it was a conscious decision we also took. My wife and I said we will not send our children to boarding house. Said they would day school and we'll see them every day, because when they're going through that phase where they think that they know better than everybody, where they're under other influences out of the home, we can see the changes quickly and we can connect to them. Today, my wife's best friend is my first daughter. My first daughter is 22, but my wife's best friend is my first daughter. My wife can tell my first daughter anything she cannot tell any of her friends outside. Why? Because we made a conscious decision to build a relationship with them. Like I said earlier, when you treat children as adults, as human beings, and you listen to their opinion, they love it and they will grow and become close to you. So if you can afford to have your children stay with you, please, that's the best thing for those children. See, now, Most of the time when we take that decision, it's out of convenience, our own convenience. It's not because of the children. I'm sorry to say it. For parents that are here, if you've done it, I'm not judging you, but you've got to look at it from my words. Look at it from my perspective. A lot of time is because we don't have the time to keep an eye on them. We do not have the time to connect with their friends. So because of that, we want to send them somewhere where we believe, oh, the discipline in Nigeria will help them become better human beings. Trust me, I know children that came like that and their lives were damaged and they never were able to recover. So it's important for you to focus on your children and help them to become the proper adults that you want them to be by spending that time with them. When they become young adults, wherever they want to go, they can go. Now, my wife is Igbo, I'm Yoruba, for example, but our children cannot speak each language, but they love Nigeria nonetheless. Why? Because we talk about Nigeria at home, we talk about different cultures at home, right? And the love for that language, they have it, and they're looking for ways to learn it. Now, the reason why they can't speak any of the language is that I travel, I come back, I don't have time to start speaking. I'd rather speak English and connect with everybody at that level first. But if they want to learn that language, they all can learn it, right? Not learning the language is not a disadvantage. But the fact that they are focused to become members of society that will always bring their best, that is, for me, that's the best advantage they have. They can learn any language they want to learn when they're ready to learn it. So that is my opinion on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Wow, that's just, I mean, we all have different opinions concerning this, and like okay, I also want to say Dr. Ayo, like Dr. Ayo said.
That means you're prophesying that you're going to get a PhD.
Yes. I'm sure. Yeah, Dr. Ayo. Just Dr. Ayo mentioned different things. My brother, we were born and raised in the UK, and my mom and dad sent him to Nigeria when he was 13 to do SS1 and SS2 and SS3. And as you know, a lot of the societal parts of like England means that before you can actually be able to do university, you come back at a certain time anyway. So just a short time, you know, to go and I don't know. I mean, I remember seeing his WAEC results thinking, how are you going to be in Nigeria and still get F9 in Yoruba? Like, you know, the idea of what do you do with these results now? Because you're still going to have to do A-levels anyway. And it kind of felt like a waste of time. Of course, it was great for him to be around grandparents and other people, but I think he says all the time, it was just fun. It was just a fun time. It was just fun being the cool kids, you know, with other cool kids who are also international anyway. And the connections that he's made in the UK is still far away what he made in Nigeria, because most of them are they're here now anyway. So I think different families, but like you said, this goes back to the idea of education and doing things for the benefit of the child and their future, and not our own personal benefit or convenience. So yes, thank you for saying that. There's a comment here as you were speaking, Dr. Ayo, that said that thank you so much in Neki Solo. Sorry if I said your name wrong. Thank you, sir. I'm intentional on keeping my children with me. As you mentioned, is very important. Are there any other contributions, questions while Dr. Ayo is around? Anything that you felt today triggered you in any way that you felt was important to share with us, for us to understand and know? While I wait for hands to come up. Iffy, what about you? I'd love to hear, especially as a leader of Face Youth, your own opinion on this topic as it pertains to what everybody said today. Where do you stand?
You know my position, essentially. I believe that education is one of the pathways to end poverty, and quality education is very important. As Pastor Ayo mentioned, some of us were able to work with the multinational and go international because of the level of quality education that we had in Nigeria. We grew up in Nigeria, so it's really different. And my parents, they were also middle class, so they weren't like super rich, but education was very important to them. So they ensured that they sacrificed and deprived themselves, which is one of the things I advocate for families to do, because what I know some of the people from our communities, especially our Igbo community, I'm sorry to say, who can afford to send their children to independent schools, but they don't see the need for it because they have different projects. They will rather like invest in building houses in the village where people don't live. I know they're going to come back to me. There's going to be a lot of backlash, but I've had a couple of their wives come to complain to us about it. It's also caused a couple of domestic violence issues where the woman had to either leave the man or get beaten by the man because she's trying to advocate for her children to get quality education. At the end of the day, like Pastor Ayo said, it's between, do you want to enjoy the luxurious life now and pay for the consequence of not sending your children to get quality education later? I know that some people argue that sometimes quality education does not guarantee success, but success depends on what you define or your own definition of success. My definition of success is different from another person's definition of success. To some people, success is perhaps their children being wealthy later. So somebody came to me responded to my post, the post I made on my WhatsApp status saying that, oh, why are we so much talking about education? How much education did Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk got? I'm like, you don't know their full story. The fact that they dropped out of university does not mean that, for instance, Mark Zuckerberg did not get like quality education, like the basic. My focus is always on early education. So primary education and secondary education, that are very important. You can decide to drop out of school and still be successful. But you see the early years, the formative years, they are very important. And those are the age where our people don't really pay so much attention to. Their focus is on getting the children to go to university, and they say, oh, my children went to public school and they still went to the university and they are successful. Alice and I spoke about it. We're not talking about being successful. We're not talking about being a medical doctor, because I used my neighbor, Hannah, as an example. And I always use her as an example. But Alice said something that really got to me, that it's not about just being a medical doctor, right? It's about being the leader. And that's one thing we're trying to focus on FACEYOUth, right? We want our people, our children, to be part of the decision makers, right? We don't just want them to be doctors. We don't just want them to be engineers like myself and Dr. Ayo, right? We want them to be CEO of those top multinationals, right? Taking decision, bringing people, changing the dynamics of the organization, right? Speaking about diversity and all that. Yeah. So I see there's another hand up, and I'll give her the opportunity to speak while we continue to have the conversation. So it's been a very interesting and enlightening conversation. Yeah. I think Blessing wants to talk.
Yes, thank you very much for this insightful discussion. I have learned so much from it, and I guess other participants have done too. This is directed to Pastor Ayo. During his discussion with us, he mentioned particularly about understanding each child and their individual differences. And particularly, he referenced the differences between his older daughter and the youngest daughter. I just want to ask, in the light of those differences, how, Pastor Ayo, you managed to navigate those differences with your two daughters and was able to come out with a productive output for each individual child without undermining any of the children and meeting their needs at the very best, so they can be the best that they were at that point in time. I would just like more insight into that, because I am in a particularly similar situation. I have got a child, an older child, who is quite independent of herself, can do things unaided, and practically needs less of attention from us than a younger one who sees her as a mentor and everything, but has his own challenges. So we're finding it difficult kind of to let him understand these differences at the moment, so we can tailor his own need based on who he is particularly at this point in time, without him feeling that we are undermining his voice or not wanting him to do what his older sister is doing. In the light of this scenario, Pastor Aya, I would like you to throw more insight on this. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So first and foremost, I think, let me put it out there, I'm not a child psychologist. So I'm just, my response, my advice, my suggestions were based on my experience and the little I've learned for the past few years.
Yeah.
So like I said, I have 3 children, right? So 1 boy and 2 girls. And my first daughter, who is a middle child, I think developed a personality because there was a time she also said that she felt that she was being neglected by us. So that's important to note. Why? Because my son, because of his dysgraphia, because by the time we discovered his dysgraphia, we had built a sense of inferiority complex into this boy because of the way we had treated him, that he did not really see early that he was very intelligent. So one of the things I started to do, like I told you, was once in a while, sit down with them individually and just have a conversation, with the mindset that even if what they tell you goes against what you believe, do not judge them. That is critical. Now, as parents, we think we are the suppository of knowledge and wisdom. And because of that, we want to teleguide our children. And that's not bad in itself. But do not forget that your knowledge is coming from your own experiences, which most times is from a totally different generation from your children. So if you don't start understanding the generation your children come from, the way they view issues, and look at the influences they see in school, on TV, and start to adjust your conversation with them, you will sound like an archaic person trying to tell them how to live in a modern life. And that is very important. So now let me bring it. So my first daughter incidentally read psychology and business management, so she understands some of these things now, and she is the one now that is telling my wife, when my last daughter, my second daughter, is acting up sometimes, she said, "Mom, that's the way teenagers behave." My wife is shocked. My wife looks at her and said, "But you're just a young adult." She said, "Yes, when I was her age, I did exactly the same thing, and I didn't understand it then. Now I understand." So your first child should be what's the word? Recruited as part of the process. Sometimes let your younger child do what he or she wants to do, right? I don't know if you notice, when a child is learning to work, the child gets up the first time, takes 1 or 2 steps and falls down. If you pick up the child and stop the child from, learning to deal with falling down, it will take the child a long time to walk, right? But most of the time, what do? We celebrate them that they got up, took 2 steps and fell down. But that child will instinctively want to do it again. That is how children learn. Can you just hold on for me, please? Hold on.
Alice, are you still there? I'm trying to see if there are questions on social media.
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry.
Okay, no, she's
Yes, sorry about that. I had to answer the call. So your second child must learn from their mistakes. You want to do something because he sees the elder one doing it, let him or her do it. But let the elder one then become like a chaperone that helps them through that process. Because their confidence then develops from seeing that they did it and they achieved something no matter how small. That child then starts to see himself or herself as someone that can do something. Because children naturally look up to their elder brother or elder sister as their role model. Don't stop it. Let them learn from there. Of course, if you're around, hover around and ensure that they don't hurt themselves, but let them learn through that process. It's also good for their development. That's my experience. Now, my younger daughter, once in a while, still tells me, oh, I don't give her enough time. So when I'm at home, I ensure that we sit down, we talk. She might just want to go out with me. I want to drive her. Dad, can I go with you? She's 18. Yeah, let's go. And we go together. The fact that she's sitting with me, even if we're not talking about anything, is enough for her. Right? And that's good. I allowed that to happen. So it's an investment of time individually. And that's why I said you must see each one of them as a human being. They're children, but they're also a human being that you could have met outside. And of course, you have conversations with them. Cultivate that, and then you will see that that child will start to trust your decision, but they also start to grow into their own personality. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so insightful. And I'm looking to see if there are any other questions. Are there any other questions on any of the other platforms?
No, I can't see any questions, but if you'd like to ask any question, I'll make any contributions before we close, because we'll be closing very shortly. Yeah, there's a hand up. Admin, could you unmute her?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for putting this together. I just want to add some flesh to what Mr. Shorty said about children and their individuality. And I loved what the co-host, when she started, I was like, oh my God, wow, this is for me. Yeah, I happen to be a parent that've got two children, two of my boys. One is in Colt Academy, and the last one, who is 11, is in Albine. And to be honest, I can see the sterling difference as individual and what the school have done on them. I can see the difference. If I know what I know today, if I knew what I know today, I wouldn't have left my son in Colt Academy. I'm not saying Colt is a bad school, but the environment in Albine is something else. I'm not trying to advertise for them as well, but I can see my little boy, 11-year-old, thinking like he can. I mean, the brother is going to be 18 in January, and he can have a conversation with any adult man. In fact, even I say they reason past the brother self. Sometimes I'm like, come on, no, seriously, please. I'm not trying to compare them again, but he borrowed a lot of things, a lot of growing up from the elder brother. And my God, I can see the grooming he got from the private school is something I can't finish talking about. He started when he was going into P2, and from Albert, I can't remember, maybe he was 5, 6. He's going to get into secondary school in August. And I have seen the difference. If I have money, as in, hey, Chineke, I will keep my child in private school. The difference is sterling, and it's massive. You know what your co-host said about how they groom them and all that? Even the way he walks, I'm like, he walks like a robot sometimes. And I'm like, oh, is that how you people walk in school? So, I mean, every child is different. You just have to deal with them the way they are and see how you can encourage them and all that. My son is trying to be a big brother as well. There are things I would say, Oma, you can't have this. And like, oh, don't worry, Oma, I'll get it for you. So, I mean, it's just what it is, but good environment does a lot of magic. Thank you so much. As in today, when the first lady spoke, I'm like, oh my God, your host, when your moderator, sorry. When she started speaking, I'm like, oh my God, even if I end this meeting now, I think I've got a lot from it. Thank you for putting this together. God bless you.
Great. That's even so informative for me. I totally understand and can relate with the differences, as you know, are very stark. But I've learned something even more than that. I'm sure we all have, that the education is not just from the school, it's not just on academia. There's a holistic understanding of education that I think that we've been privy to today. That it's not just the school that they go to, because you can go to the best schools and invest financially in the best institutions, but there's something that has to also still happen at home. The mindset of the parent. For me today, hearing, I'm not call them both doctors, Dr. Clark and Dr. Shote speak, for me, it sounded like they had parents who had the right strategy. They had parents who were thinking along the right lines as it pertains to preparation and positioning for their child. And I think that that's the take home, that education is not just where you take your children, it's the positioning that you have in your own mind, how you look at your children, how you view them, how you're able to advocate for them in giving them the best so that they can be the best for themselves. And of course, there are the financial stresses, and we didn't get to speak so much on them. But I think I feel like I got a lot of advice where it comes to understanding that you do what you can. No one's saying to rob a bank, but you do what you can. And one thing that I have been privy to over the past, like since I started my education, is there are many children which you don't know that are in these schools. I'd say about a good, nowadays, 50% of school kids are not paying school, not paying full school fees. And I say that with confidence. So I really do want to employ the people who might be on the lines thinking there are many bursaries available, scholarships available. There's so much happening. What they're looking for are literally parents with the mindset of the people we listen to today, that I know that my child is meant to be upon the creme de la creme of this society. As well is the partnership of parents, partnership, and you know, as Ife mentioned as well, issues with the fact when it comes to partnership and school, they go hand in hand. Even from the dating stage, as Dr. Aya had mentioned, there was talk on how they wanted to educate their children, and this goes to what Dr. Clark said, which is more about preparation. So I just employ us all to have these conversations with our partners, with the people around us, with our community, make the right decision as it pertains to our children's lives, for them, for their benefit. But strategy is what I got today. Today, I don't know about you, but I've written down strategy on exactly how to position my children to have a head start in life. So if there ain't no other contributions, I'm looking through the chat as well. There's a thank you here, but I just want to say a big thank you all. Thank you to our amazing panelists who shared a lot on their own personal experiences and their own personal opinions, which I know was insightful. Thank you, Ife, for putting this together and giving me the privilege to moderate. We have some soft music that's going to be sung for us. Are we still having, is she still around, Ife, to sing for us? Can't hear, I see you're nodding your head, but yeah, so we'll be playing that. And if you still have questions, please put them in the chat. We can post them later. And Ife, over to you, and over and out, should I say it?
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you everybody for taking time out to join us today. We really appreciate you all. Thank you. So I put on the box that we have a feedback form. We value your feedback for continuous improvement. So if you can click on the form and tell us what you would like to see us improve on to make this program more interesting and attract more people and more impactful as well. As you know, we are a charity and we need volunteers. So if you'd like to be part of the planning process of this program, please get in touch. We need people to help us get quality speakers for our monthly mental health awareness event and manage the survey. So we get young people to choose different topics. We thought today's topic was very important because it's that time of the year where we as parents take decision regarding our children's school. So there are so many scholarship opportunities. Unfortunately, for the children going into school in August, September is already too late. So if you are thinking of accessing the scholarship for next year, you should start now. So they publish it early, and then you have to get an accountant to help you plan your finances. So if you like us to help you with that, like give you guidance on how to do that, get some of the families that have already have been opportune to get scholarship for their children, we can also do that. But we'll be signposting you to organizations and some of the schools. Just stay tuned. Follow us on social media because we'll be sharing scholarship opportunities from different schools. Obviously, you have to prepare your children to write the exams, the scholarship exam, and the preparation you have to start it early. So like Mrs. Clark mentioned, early education is very important. Early years, we tend to neglect early years, but if you get them to start Kumon or Explore Learning, not like I'm advertising those, but extra lesson, especially for those in public schools, public primary school, if you want them to have access to scholarship, you have to start early to prepare them for that. So we are planning on starting academic support for children, like online tutoring. We just need more volunteers to make that happen. We wanted to make it face-to-face, but I think on waiting to make that happen face-to-face, we are also delaying the process. So we will start online and see how it goes. If we have to move it to a face-to-face academic support session, we'll do that. But as a charity, something that we are looking for funding for and thinking of doing, especially for our people, because I know that finance is a big restraint for so many of us, from our community. So support us. If you're also a teacher and would like to support academic projects, academic support, we call it academic support, is after school tutoring, right? So we get teachers to take it like specialist subjects, English, maths, and sciences. So some of the sciences, physics, chemistry, and the core. So we're not going to be doing like history or geography and all those. So it's going to be like core subjects, yeah. So let us know if you'd like to be involved. So once again, thank you for joining us today. We'll play the music from Miles. She sent us her music. Unfortunately, she has something. So we'll just play the music from Connie and we'll call it a day. Thank you again for joining us. Yeah.
Hi, I'm
Thank
Connie,
you, Alice. You're amazing moderator. We'll do our thank yous after the music. Yeah.
Guest today. I'm doing 3 songs. This first one is an original called Star. Don't be scared.
was just going.
Yeah, we'll soon finish.
Are you done?
You don't know who you are. 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 You're a shining star, you don't know what you are, 'cause a star can't see how it's shimmering, but you've come this far not knowing what you are. So when you see, you know it's meant to be, up above so high, floating in the sky, you know your light is there. Oh, don't be scared, you won't know where to go if you don't shimmer, so let your light be free, you know it's meant to be. That's how you are. You're a shining star, knowing what you are, 'cause you're a star that sees how you're meant to be. This is a cover of Somewhere Only We Know. I walked across an empty land. I knew the pathway like the back of my hand. I felt the earth beneath my feet, sat by the river and it made me complete. A simple thing, where have you gone? I'm getting old and I need something to rely on. Oh, tell me when you're gonna let me in. I'm getting tired and I need somewhere to begin. I came across a fallen tree. I felt the branches of it looking at me. Is this the place we used to love? Is this the place that I've been dreaming of? Oh, simple thing, where have you gone? I'm getting old and I need something to rely on. Oh, tell me when you're gonna let me in. I'm getting tired and I need somewhere to begin. And if you have a minute, why don't we go talk about it somewhere only we know? This could be the end of everything, so why don't we go somewhere